Stop searching. Start trusting what God already said. There is a quiet tension many believers carry, though it is not always spoken aloud. You pray, you ask, you wait, and somewhere beneath those prayers is a question you may not even realize you are asking. Does God truly understand what I need? Not just in a general sense, but in the specific weight of your situation, the details that feel too complex or too personal to explain. Yet Scripture consistently reveals a God who is neither distant nor uncertain. He does not react to your life as it unfolds, as though he is discovering your needs alongside you. He already knows, already sees, already understands, and more than that, he has already spoken. The challenge is not that your needs are hidden from him, but that they may remain unrecognized by you in the way he has chosen to define them. Jesus spoke plainly about this, not to dismiss your concerns, but to anchor your heart in truth. For your Father knoweth what things ye have need of, before ye ask him. This is not a call to stop praying, but a call to pray differently, to come before God not as one trying to inform him, but as one learning to trust what he has already declared. I have come to realize that much of my rest began not when my circumstances changed, but when I stopped assuming that God was withholding clarity from me. Number 1. God is never vague about what you truly need. God does not deal in uncertainty when it comes to what truly matters for your life. While many things around you may feel unclear, decisions, outcomes, timing, his definition of your needs is not hidden behind confusion. The difficulty often lies not in God being unclear, but in the difference between what he calls essential and what you have come to believe is necessary. From the beginning, Scripture shows a God who brings clarity through his word. He does not create without purpose or speak without intention. When God names something, it is not casual. It establishes identity, function, and meaning. This same God does not become vague when it comes to your life. What you truly need is not something he is still trying to figure out or waiting to reveal at the right moment. It has already been defined within his will and revealed through his word. Part of spiritual maturity is learning to recognize that your sense of need is not always reliable. Circumstances can amplify certain desires until they feel essential, even urgent. But God's perspective is not shaped by pressure or emotion. He sees beyond the moment you are in and understands what will sustain you, form you, and keep you anchored in him. This is why his answers sometimes feel different from what you expected, not because he is withholding, but because he is precise. Scripture reminds us of this clarity in a direct and grounding way. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Genesis 1:31. What God defines, he defines fully. There is no uncertainty in his assessment, no hesitation in his provision. In the same way, what he calls necessary for your life is already known, already established, and already sufficient. I have found that confusion often begins to fade when I stop asking God to redefine my needs and start asking him to help me understand what he has already said. Number 2, the language of God, how he names what you need. God does not leave you to search endlessly for hidden messages or private meanings when it comes to your needs. He has already chosen the primary way he speaks, and it is not through constant new impressions, but through his word. This is where he names what is essential for your life, not only in broad truths, but in specific lived realities. Wisdom for decisions, peace in uncertainty, grace in weakness, endurance in trials. There is a quiet shift that happens when you begin to take Scripture seriously, not just as encouragement, but as definition. Instead of approaching God as though you are waiting for something new to be said, you begin to return to what has already been spoken, and in doing so you start to recognize that many of the things you are asking for have already been clearly addressed. This is important for your spiritual safety as well. If you begin to treat your own thoughts or feelings as equal to God's voice, it becomes easy to misinterpret your desires as his direction. But God has not left his people without a stable foundation. His word does not change with your circumstances, and it does not adjust itself to fit your preferences. It remains steady, clear, and sufficient. The Bible speaks to this with clarity. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. 2 Timothy 3:16. Notice the completeness of that statement. Scripture does not only inspire, it teaches, corrects, and guides. It shapes your understanding of what is right, what is lacking and what is needed. Learning the language of God means returning again and again to what He has already said, even when it feels familiar. It is there that your definition of need begins to change, not shaped by urgency, but by truth. I have noticed that the more I anchor myself in Scripture, the less I feel the need to chase after answers that were never missing in the first place. Number 3. When desire clouds discernment. Not everything that feels urgent is truly necessary, and not everything that feels right is aligned with God's will. One of the more subtle challenges in the Christian life is learning to discern the difference between a genuine need and a deeply felt desire. Because the truth is, your desires can be sincere and still be misplaced. The heart has a way of attaching importance to things based on emotion, timing, or pressure. In seasons of uncertainty, what you want can begin to feel like what you need. And if that distinction is not examined carefully, you may find yourself asking God to confirm something He has never promised, or waiting for Him to provide something He has not defined as essential. Scripture does not ignore this reality. It speaks to it directly, not to discourage you, but to ground you in truth. The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it? Jeremiah 17:9. This is not a statement meant to create fear, but clarity. It reminds you that your internal sense of certainty is not always a reliable guide. Left unexamined, your desires can shape your expectations in ways that drift from God's wisdom. This is where spiritual maturity begins to take form. Instead of asking God to bless what you already want, you begin to place your desires before Him with openness, allowing His word to refine, correct, or even redirect them. This does not mean your desires are unimportant, but it does mean they must be submitted, not assumed. There is a quiet strength in being willing to say, "Lord, if this is not what I truly need, then reshape my understanding." That posture protects you from building your faith on something unstable. It keeps you anchored in what is true, rather than what is merely compelling in the moment. I have learned that some of my strongest desires were not wrong because they were intense, but because I had never paused to let God examine them first. Number 4. The quiet sufficiency of what God has already provided. There is a kind of provision that does not draw attention to itself. It does not always arrive with visible change or immediate relief, yet it is real, steady, and complete in ways that are easy to overlook. Much of what God has already given you falls into this category: present, sufficient, but often unnoticed because it does not match your expectations. The Bible does not describe God's provision as partial or uncertain. It speaks of a sufficiency that is already established, not something you are waiting to unlock. This does not mean every desire is fulfilled, but it does mean that what is necessary for your life with God has not been withheld. The challenge is learning to recognize that sufficiency in the middle of ordinary, sometimes difficult circumstances. Scripture speaks directly to this truth. According as His divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of Him that hath called us to glory and virtue. Notice the language, hath given, not will give at some undefined point, but already given, and not in fragments, but all things that pertain to life and godliness. This shifts the way you look at your situation. Instead of assuming something essential is missing, you begin to ask a different question. What has God already provided that I have not yet recognized or received? Often the answer is found in what seems too simple to matter. His word guiding you, His Spirit strengthening you, His grace sustaining you, even when circumstances remain unchanged. Contentment, then, is not passive acceptance, nor is it the denial of difficulty. It is the quiet acknowledgement that God's provision is real, even when it is not dramatic. It is learning to live from what has been given, rather than constantly reaching for what feels absent. I have found that when I slow down enough to notice what God has already placed in my life, I begin to see that His provision was never lacking. Only my awareness of it was. Number 5. Trusting the timing without redefining the need. There is a subtle temptation that often appears in seasons of waiting. You may begin with a clear sense of what God has said, grounded in Scripture, steady in your understanding. But as time passes and nothing seems to change, something within you starts to shift. Not always outwardly, but quietly. You begin to adjust your expectations, soften what was once clear, or even redefine what you believed you needed. Waiting can do that. It does not always shake your faith in obvious ways. Sometimes it simply reshapes your perspective little by little. What God has already named begins to feel distant, and in that distance it becomes easier to reinterpret it according to your present discomfort. But God's truth does not evolve with your circumstances. What He has defined remains the same, even when its fulfillment unfolds slowly. Scripture reminds you that God's timing is not uncertain or careless. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. This is not a vague statement about life. It is a declaration that God's work operates within a purposeful order. What He has named for your life is not disconnected from when it will come to pass. Timing is not an afterthought. It is part of His design. The danger is not in waiting itself, but in allowing the waiting to alter your understanding of what is true. Instead of holding firmly to what God has already revealed, you may begin to reshape it into something more immediate, more comfortable, or more aligned with your current situation. But doing so often leads to confusion, not peace. Trusting God's timing means holding on to His definition of your need without trying to revise it. It is a steady posture that says, even if I do not see it yet, I will not change what I know to be true. This kind of trust is not passive, it is deeply active, rooted in conviction rather than urgency. I have learned that the longer I wait, the more intentional I must be about not letting time rewrite what God has already made clear. Number 6. Living faithfully with what has been named. Understanding what God has already named is only the beginning. The deeper question is how you live in response to it. It is possible to recognize truth, even agree with it, and yet remain unchanged in the way you move through your daily life. But Scripture consistently calls you beyond awareness into faithfulness. Faithfulness is not found in waiting for something new to happen, but in stewarding what has already been given. When God defines your need, whether it is wisdom, patience, forgiveness, or endurance, He is not only revealing something to you, He is inviting you to walk in it. And often that walk is quiet, steady, and unseen by others. There is a tendency to delay obedience while looking for further clarity. You may feel as though you need more confirmation, more certainty, or a clearer sign before you act. But God's pattern throughout Scripture is different. He speaks and then He calls His people to respond in trust, even when the outcome is not yet visible. This is captured in a simple but profound way. But be ye doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. James 1:22. The danger is not ignorance, it is hearing truth without living it. When you continually wait for something more before you act, you may unknowingly be postponing the very growth God has already made possible. Living faithfully means applying what you already know to be true, even in small, ordinary decisions. It means choosing patience when you understand its value, extending grace when you have received it, and trusting God's provision when you recognize His sufficiency. These are not dramatic acts, but they are deeply formative. Spiritual maturity is often less about discovering new truths and more about consistently walking in the ones you have already received. As you do, clarity tends to deepen, not because something new has been revealed, but because what was already known has become lived. I have found that many of the answers I was searching for began to unfold only after I started acting on what I already understood. Number 7. Peace comes when you stop searching for another answer. There's a certain restlessness that can settle into the heart when you are always looking for something more. Another confirmation, a clearer sign, a different answer that feels easier to accept. It is not always obvious, but this constant searching can quietly pull you away from the stability God has already given. Instead of standing on what is true, you remain in motion, unsure where to settle. God does not lead His people into endless uncertainty. While there are moments of genuine waiting and unanswered questions, the foundation of your life is not meant to be unstable. When He has already spoken clearly through His word, continuing to search for a different answer often leads not to clarity, but to deeper confusion. This is why peace is closely tied to trust. Not trust in your ability to understand everything, but trust in the sufficiency of what God has already revealed. Scripture speaks of this kind of peace in a way that is both grounded and attainable. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. Isaiah 26:30. Peace is not found in having every question resolved, but in fixing your attention on the one who has already proven faithful. When you stop searching for another answer, It does not mean you stop praying or seeking God. It means your seeking becomes anchored rather than restless. You return to what He has said, not to question it again, but to stand on it more firmly. Over time, that posture brings a quiet stability, a sense that you are no longer being pulled in different directions by every new thought or feeling. This kind of peace does not come suddenly. It grows as you choose, again and again, to trust what is already true, rather than chasing what feels uncertain. And in that trust, your heart begins to settle. I have come to see that much of my inner unrest was not caused by a lack of answers, but by my reluctance to rest in the ones God had already given. Conclusion: resting in what God has already spoken. There comes a point in your walk with God where the question is no longer, "What else do I need to hear?" but rather, "Am I willing to rest in what He has already said?" This is not a passive kind of rest, nor is it a surrender of desire or hope. It is a settled confidence that your life is not undefined, and your needs have not been overlooked. Throughout Scripture, God consistently reveals Himself as one who speaks with clarity and purpose. He does not leave His people in confusion about what truly matters. While there may still be unknowns in your circumstances, the foundation of your life, what you need to walk with Him, has already been named, and that foundation is not fragile. It does not shift with your emotions, your timing, or your expectations. The invitation, then, is not to search endlessly for something new, but to return with deeper trust to what is already true. This kind of faith does not rush ahead, nor does it fall into discouragement. It remains steady, anchored in the character of God and the sufficiency of His Word. It learns to recognize that clarity has already been given, even if understanding continues to grow over time. Scripture gently draws you into this posture. Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for He is faithful that promised. Hebrews 10:23. Your confidence is not in your ability to hold everything together, but in God's faithfulness to what He has already spoken. He does not revise His truth, and He does not forget what He has declared over your life. Rest, then, is not found in having every detail resolved, but in trusting the One who has already made your path known in all that truly matters. As you begin to live from that place, the striving begins to quiet, and faith becomes less about searching and more about abiding. I have found that the deeper my trust in what God has already spoken, the less I feel the need to look beyond it for something more.